Lots of good stuff coming up.
Oh yeah.
All right. Some good conspiracies out there. Indeed.
Always good, man.
Yeah.
Always good talking about the weird stuff.
All right.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Yo, fuck nuts. It's pro.
Conspiracy Hour with the CjH.
So, greetings, everyone. Greetings, strange humans, as I say on the podcast.
Hello, humans.
This is the CjH Entertainment podcast. Used to be called the CjH podcast. Here's our guest. If you want to introduce yourself.
I am Thade Bays. How is everybody tonight? I am your almighty singing cephalopod.
Indeed. Lots of times we discussed some of this world topics, and that's where we bring ourselves today to this episode 7 of season 3. I definitely need to start being more organized with these episodes because they're all over the place. But yeah, so Atlantis, what do you think of that?
So yeah, it's definitely an interesting story, and I think that they say every legend has a basis in fact, and I believe it was Plato in his letters. I believe it was Critias and Timaeus, where he talks about his grandfather Solon told him about the story of Atlantis, and that Solon himself had gotten it from Egyptian priests that told him that the time of Atlantis had happened like 6,000 years before their current time, which would have put it around 12,800 BC, right before the last ice age, what they call the Younger Dryas Ice Age event.
Yeah.
And which was a smaller ice age. It wasn't one of the great freezes, but it was definitely a change. And of course, modern humanity did survive the last ice age. A lot of people don't commonly understand is that an ice age is not like the whole planet's a frozen ice ball.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just
It's
the temperatures
resetting. Yeah.
Yeah, the temperatures are really low. There's usually a whole lot less sunlight filtering through to the surface. And but I mean, there's still you're still able to survive as a people. And I think that we may have those priests may have actually been talking about something that actually happened that we have just lost the records of, or what have you. You'll also notice that most cultures around the world have what they call a Great Flood myth. Of course, in the Bible, they talk about Noah's flood.
The original conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, the Noah's Ark theory. But in the Norse mythologies, they have a very similar story. In Sumerian lore, there's the story of Gilgamesh, which has Utnapishtim was the Noah figure in that story.
Isn't that
Um,
the original, the oldest known story written?
yes, that is the oldest known written legend. It was written on tablets in cuneiform. Um, but you also had there's Chinese legends of a great flood. The Aztecs and the Mayans and the Olmec peoples here in America had, the indigenous peoples of America had those stories. There's, I think, at last count, there's like 300 different flood myths amongst cultures. And I honestly think that with so many cultures talking about a great flood story, that something happened to raise the sea level of this planet quite a bit and to reset us. So like you have, say like a cosmic bombardment um, or a
An
volcanic event,
earthquake. Yeah.
a seismic volcanic event that puts enough, crap and carbon monoxide and stuff into the atmosphere and that changes things. And then we go into a waning period for like 1,000 years or more, and people don't like the human mind barely comprehends 100 years. Think about how much time there is between now and the pyramids.
Yeah.
Do you
And we
realize?
still don't know exactly how the pyramids got there either.
Right.
I
So
mean,
if you
we
think
have
about
a
it,
relative.
we have a relative idea,
Yeah.
but we're not sure how they did it. We just have theories. Okay? And here's the thing. We are closer now in historical time period to the building of the pyramids. Well, I won't say that. We're closer geological time period to ancient Rome than we are to the last ice age. Okay?
Yeah.
If you think about how long ago 100 years ago was and what was happening 100 years ago, then you add 1,000 years to that, or 10,000 years on top of that. Our minds don't comprehend how much changes in that time period. People will tell you that there was nothing, that there was no high technical civilizations before 6,000 years ago in Sumeria when we first started figuring out agriculture. But uh, if you look at the many thousands of years that separate those events, you're not always going to get the full story if you
Yeah.
catch my meaning. So
And they're always hiding history books too.
exactly.
Well,
And then
what's the saying that they say? Like victory, or the victors always write the history books.
yeah, of course. And that's the thing too. Plus you've got to think about things like the burning of the Library of Alexandria back in the Roman times. What information did we lose when the Library of Alexandria was lost? How many scrolls and tablets were broken, or tablets or scrolls that have rotted away that we will never know the story of. I mean, what's hidden in the Vatican archives? They will only let you look at so much.
Yeah.
I think that there's a whole lot more out there than we're willing to even think about. And
I
then
mean, the
we talk about
legends.
Sumeria, according to current academic thought, academic historical thought. The Sumerians in the Babylonian region, in Mesopotamia, were the first to create agriculture. But now we've dug up a city uh, and some structures in the deserts in Turkey, in the Cappadocia region in Anatolia, that are 6 or 7 thousand years older than that, and we've just scratched the surface with that dig. There's a place called Göbekli Tepe that is 10,000 years old or more. And there's even older settlements that we're finding in the deserts in Turkey. There's a place that they're calling Karahan Tepe and another place called Bangkulu Tarla that may have possibly had plumbing, which we didn't think happened until the Roman times. You know, so we're finding out things that are older as we move along with our archaeological digs and stuff. But I also think that there's an element of academia that is trying to stop you from knowing certain things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That they're trying to alter the course of the story that's being told because they don't want the paradigm to shift. They want to have control of history, so they're not going to always let you know these other things. And they're going to try to put a lid on things that don't make sense to what they're teaching you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
So people don't rise up, and
right. So, do I think that Atlantis might have been a thing at some time? Of course I do. I don't know that if it's exactly how the Greek stories went, how Plato's story said, but like, I think that there is an element or a kernel of truth to those stories.
well,
I also,
they
and this
recent.
is,
Oh, sorry.
and I think this is where I'm going to get way out of pocket with some people. But I think maybe the ancient aliens guys, some of the people that believe in the whole ancient aliens thing, I think there may be some
A
truth
little
to
bit
that.
of truth. A little definitely stretched truth, but definitely some truth there.
I think at one time humanity met some beings from another world
And we viewed them
that
as gods.
we would see as gods because they flew across the cosmos and came here. I mean, what would you think if you were from 6 or 7 thousand years ago and some man came out of the sky on a sky chariot and stepped out and it was like nothing you've ever seen, you know?
Yeah.
Hell, there's even stories in the Bible that don't contradict the idea that there's not extraterrestrial life. You know, you have the stories, and I believe it's the book of Elijah, where he talks about the wheels within wheels, and that each one of these wheels had many eyes on it. You know, and which could be easily taken for lights. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
there's a
Like,
lot of religions that view snakes as high uh, beings as well.
yeah, and you could have, there could have been. Well, you also think about it. The
Or
last major,
serpents.
the last major animal species that rose on this planet died off 66 million years ago, and I'm talking about the dinosaurs.
And yet
And
there's paintings of dinosaurs
with humans.
before they were even officially discovered. So it's
But
like,
here's the thing, and a lot of people don't think about this. We're talking about 66 million years, CJH. 66 million years. And, humans have only been around, modern day humans have only been around for about 300,000 years. What happened with all that time beforehand?
yeah.
You know,
And
what
we
a,
didn't even start writing history for
we
the
didn't really
longest
even
time.
start writing history until almost 10,000 years ago. There's so much time has passed on this planet that you never know what you've missed. Or people talk about, well, there couldn't have been high-tech civilizations because we would have found the plastic or the metals or whatever.
Yeah.
That shit breaks down, man. That stuff decays. Like,
Yeah.
you're talking about, I mean, there could have been several times on this planet where there were high-tech civilizations and we'd never know about it because the planet has shifted so many times and there's been so many, like, seismic shifts and weather events and continents moving and drifting and all of this other. We're a constantly dynamically moving planet. So who's to say that we don't know who's to say we know what happened? We
Yeah.
don't. We
It was the
simply
same
know,
situation. Oh, sorry.
we simply have some idea of what could have happened. We have a bunch of theory, not fact.
Yeah. Same situation could be like we're Mars, like the theory that maybe humanity came from Mars and all that.
Well,
But Mars has like gone through billions of years of, stuff could have broken down by then, like you said. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
CLS
Oh,
Studios.
oh yeah,
Honey,
yeah.
as a loyal chatter, I must come. Of course you must. And we have stories to share.
Yes, indeed. And
As
those listening on the replay or on the podcast on Spotify, welcome, welcome.
you know, as a couple of extraterrestrials to our human audience,
Yeah.
I just think that there's a whole lot of things that people aren't just looking at when it comes to things that could have happened. Like, for instance, you talked about Mars. There's been some theory about Mars. It's at the edge of our habitable zone for our star.
Hmm. We could have
And
easily destroyed it like we're doing now with Earth.
well, here's the thing about Mars, and this is I'm not sure how much I believe this, but it's interesting food for thought. Okay? There are several civilizations on this planet that talked about a war in heaven where two species came together and fought. And several of them talk about a planet that was destroyed and how we fled and we found the Garden Planet. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, some of the studies that it's coming through now with NASA and some of the other space agencies that have sent probes out to the asteroid belt, have found that a lot of the rocks, a lot of the asteroids in the asteroid belt are made of the same substances. So it's not hard to believe that at one point the asteroid belt, which is an area between Mars and Jupiter, could have actually been its own planet at one point, and that it was either pulled apart by Jupiter's gravity, tugging on Mars. Because the way our gravity works in this solar system is other planets tug on each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To keep how we move. And it's not hard to believe that that planet that was between Jupiter and Mars could have been ripped apart by gravity because Jupiter is so much bigger than Mars. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it also is not hard to believe that it could have been destroyed in a war, and that planet getting to any of the planets in our solar system, if they were to be destroyed, would change the orbits of the other planets, okay, because of the way gravity works. And if there was a planet between Mars and Jupiter and it was destroyed, it would have shifted Mars and Earth and Venus, really, it would have shifted the whole system farther out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, if the asteroid belt was a planet, we may have come from there. We may have come
You,
from Mars. And
you,
Earth just became the last place that we could go when when that planet was destroyed and Mars was wrecked. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So we may have had to run to Earth because Earth was the last known vestige. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you think maybe the dwarf planet Ceres or Ceres? How do you say that?
Ceres, the biggest
Ceres.
asteroid out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. Do you think that was part of an older planet that
It
got
might have
destroyed,
been.
or?
And just to answer CLS in the studio, actually CLS, Earth and the other, if that had been another planet, those planets would have all been formed around the same time. The solar system itself and our sun is about 4 billion years old. All of the planets in our system formed around the same time, so it's not hard to believe that that planet was destroyed and it affected Earth. Earth is relatively old. It's about 4.2, 4.3 billion years old. So
Earth
it,
could
it's
have been in a happy accident.
yeah,
Almost.
it's not hard to believe that the three planets that used to be in the habitable zone would have shifted over time. Also, if you think about it, Earth, Mars, and Venus, which are all technically in the habitable zone, over time, gravity fluctuates. Gravity changes. Just
Yeah.
like our planet is dynamically changing, our solar system also dynamically changes.
Well, we're also finding like what is it, bacteria on Venus, or has habitable elements. It's just really way too hot.
Well, the thing about Venus is what? Hold on, let me address this in the chat. Wouldn't a whole planet being gone affect more of our solar system? Who's to say it hasn't? One of the things that a lot of people don't understand that aren't scientifically inclined is there's two counterpoints in our solar system that hold the gravity. One of them being the sun. It is the main counter. It's the main gravitic counterpoint. The other gravitic counterpoint is Jupiter. Jupiter is about 0.3 or 0.4 masses lighter than some of the smallest stars out there in the galaxy. So Jupiter was almost a star, or it could have been at one point had it not just stopped. Um, it's almost what they call a brown dwarf mass-wise. So it's not hard to believe that things have shifted over time. Like I said, our solar system is dynamic. It changes. Our star, we're just now learning more about our star and how it affects everything in our solar system. And it's not hard to believe that Jupiter is another counterpoint. A whole lot of people don't understand this, but if Jupiter isn't where it is in the solar system, Earth would be in a whole lot of trouble right now because of comets. Um,
Commentary. You
Jupiter,
imagine commentary
Jupiter,
channels. Way to see the solar
Jupiter
system.
holds off quite a bit of things that could hit us if it wasn't there. Because its greater
Asteroids.
gravitation, it draws the asteroids to itself instead of us. And even at that, it's proven that we've been hit several times by massive civilization-ending rocks. You have the dinosaurs, the KT extinction event, which the crater is at Chicxulub in Mexico, on the Yucatan Peninsula. It's huge. It's 150 miles across, which means that the object that hit there had to have been 10 to 15 miles wide.
And who's to say that the great floods and all that were caused by an asteroid?
You know, there's an asteroid field that our planet passes through called the Torrid meteor stream every couple of years. And around 12,800 years ago, we passed through it. And there's a possibility that our planet was bombarded on two major occasions on one major occasion before the Younger Dryas the Younger Dryas Ice Age, and then at a period just as it was ending. That we passed through the Torrid twice in that time period, which is about 1,200 years. And there's a whole lot of possibility that we got struck in a multiple collision, not just one. So, the more asteroids hitting at the same time does the same thing as a massive asteroid all at once. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, they also say water could have came from space as well, from an asteroid. So there's potential that an asteroid with water hit Earth before it was habitable.
Yeah, this is back about 4 billion years ago. They're talking about that asteroids or comets might have brought water to Earth. You are correct. There's also a theory out there that says that cephalopods, octopus, squids, cuttlefish, those sort of creatures, came in a thing called panspermia, which is they were dormant on an asteroid, and when that asteroid came here, they survived and evolved here.
That's why they're so smart.
Well, this for one, that's why they're so smart. But for two, they're genetically different than most life forms on Earth. They are in fact alien to what we are, and there's a possibility that even humans don't fit where we are. I mean, look at how easily we sunburn.
Yeah.
Look at how easily the sun can actually affect people.
Yeah, and our backs give out through gravity and all that.
Yeah, it's possible that we came from a place, or that early versions of ourselves came from a place that was less gravity.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell that the gravitation of our planet does affect us in very negative ways, especially the heavier you get. If you gain weight, quite a bit of weight, it's even worse.
Oh, CLS has some questions enough.
All right, better question. Why have we not figured out how to travel from planet to planet easily nowadays? Because I doubt if we survived the trip from that other planet, we wouldn't still have a ship or
I
whatever.
th-
Here's
I
the
think
thing.
we have, but no one has the money to do it.
I
If
think
that makes
we
sense.
know how to do it. I think that we're just not as focused on it as a race at the time. Because if you look at it, it's been 40 years since we've been back to the moon. Since a manned group has been back to the moon.
Yeah, we got distracted by life, essentially.
Yeah, essentially, we got distracted by life. Do you know how much money we don't give NASA every year? Like, our economy gives NASA very little. And one of the first things that a government will cut to fix the budget is the space program. Because we initially, I mean, if it wasn't for the war, the Cold War, we wouldn't have had such a reason to go to the moon in the first place.
Yeah,
Um,
we'd still be stuck here.
it was our challenging Russia that caused us to fight to get to the moon to see who would get to the moon first. What's up, Isaac? How you doing?
Hello, Isaac.
You might not like our story. You might not like our show tonight, Isaac. It's gonna challenge a lot of your beliefs. But
Well,
thank you for
are
joining
welcome
us.
to join. You are welcome to join. I will send the link to him if he wants to join.
Hated the Cold War. Had to kill off my fridge. That's hilarious, Isaac. But no, like, here's what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that these things are necessarily true. I'm saying it's possible. Anything is possible.
Right.
We just don't know. A lot of what we
So-
believe, we take on blind faith. You know what I'm saying?
Just to
And-
recap, we're talking about lost history, the history of the solar system.
The
We dabble
possibility-
into a little bit of religion, I guess. In a
The
sense.
possibility that possibly we may have come from another planet to Earth, the possibility of alien races, the possibility of Atlantis, that kind of thing, Isaac.
Yeah. I
Just
sent a link to Isaac on Twitter, by the way.
All right. Just the possibilities of what could have happened versus what we believe happened.
Yes.
God is good,
Indeed.
Isaac. And let me say this. Just because I have these opinions doesn't mean I don't believe in God.
Exactly. Like it could, like we might view it as, God might be another being. I would definitely love to hear Isaac's take on all this, actually.
And CLS says, as a religious man, I've always wondered why God made other planets. What purpose do they serve? But I can wrap my head around God having life on other planets. But hey, that's the Catholic in me. Look, here's the thing about organized religion, my friend. If I can call you my friend. Humans have to believe in something. Do I believe that all of this just happened? No. I think that there is a thing called intelligent design. And I think that God, whatever you think that is, whoever you think that is, started this all in motion. And with all of the trillions of planets that we now know are out there in the galaxies, in the universe, I don't think God just put life here. And I think that whatever God is, whatever you believe God is, it has a whole lot of space for a lot of things to happen. So, are extraterrestrials possible? Yes, of course they are. Humans have this problem with being humanocentric, which means we only think that we're the most important things in the universe. And that's going to happen with any species because, well, we got to think about ourselves, But if you open up your mind to other things, not only does it make it believing in God an easier thing, but it also helps you look at all of the myriad possibilities of what could have happened on your planet. Humans have this need to believe and to have faith in something. And I think that's what gives us that possibility. Now, is my belief and my faith in God going to be the same as any other person's? No, because faith is different for each one of us. As long as you believe that there is something greater than yourself, you're doing yourself a favor. At least in my opinion. Now, you may have a different opinion of that than me, and that's okay. That's what makes being human fascinating, because we can all have our own opinions. And I think that a lot of people...
Oh, what were you gonna say?
I think that a lot of people... I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, CJH.
Sorry.
I think that a lot of people limit their viewpoints. And I think we get so caught up on the day-to-day bullshit of what's going on in society that we don't open ourselves up to the incredible, the supernatural, the amazing beyond out there in the world. Because we get too caught up in our day-to-day BS, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that if you open your mind, your ass will follow. You know? I think that if you open yourself up to the possibilities, that you have a much more rich life and a rich understanding of things than limiting yourself to just what's terrestrial. You know? Do I believe in God? Of course I do. I believe that there was an entity, a being, whatever you want to call it, that started all of this. I just think it's a very busy entity, and that it cares about each one of its creations, but it's also very busy, if that makes sense. I think that it's got a lot to look after out there. There's quadrillions of stars, trillions of planets. There's about 70 billion galaxies that we found on the telescopes and the stuff that we have pointing out into space. And it thrills me to think that as I look up into the night sky, that hundreds of thousands of light years away, somebody else on another planet might be looking up at those same stars. They just look different because they're in a different position. You know? I like to think that there's other people out there, and it's not just little old us back in our little backwater part of our galaxy.
I mean,
you know,
we
in this,
also told
in,
stories based on the stars too.
right, in the scheme of things, we are kind of in a backwater position where we are on our planet anyway. If this was the Star Wars universe, we'd be beyond the outer rim, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we are out on an outer spiral arm of our galaxy.
In the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere. We're basically in the rural area of space, at least in our galaxy, you know?
Yeah.
And we're way out in the boonies, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that I get why we have a humanocentric view, but I don't think we're the only important ones out there. And I think whatever entity God is, whatever its purpose for doing what it's done, is for more than just humanity. And I think one of these days we may meet the others.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who's to say we haven't already?
Who's to say they're not walking amongst us?
And that we're keeping that information from people.
Another is, what if there is something outside of the universe? Like the whole multiverse idea? You know, according to physics, the possibility of a multiverse is really, really, really looking very much possible.
I heard a theory that it's very similar to our universe. It just has maybe one or two changes on different branches of the universe. So that would explain like the Mandela effect and stuff.
It's also possible that every once in a while
each choice is a different choice in each universe.
It's also possible that if the many worlds theory of physics is correct, that it's possible sometimes that we connect with ourselves in those other universes. It's possible that every once in a while we connect with the other versions of us through dream, or through things that we consider deja vu. Oh, I've been here before. Well, what if that's not you? What if that's another version of you from from a quantum time slip, or another version of you 6 steps to the left? You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know how closely each one of these versions of ourselves are connected. So if you think about where we go from here, what we do with ourselves, who we are, it's really humbling. But not only is it humbling, it's also very, very big. If that makes sense. It's very, very big. There's a lot to unpack when you come to thinking about that kind of thing. Well, a multiverse shouldn't be possible in terms of more human life because I don't think all of us can be in another universe. But that's another me. But that is another me. It's very complicated. You know,
Well, I've also had the theory that say when we die, we don't actually die in the other universe, or we die in this universe, but our life continues in the other universe.
that's also possible. Like I said, anything is possible. You know,
I feel like we've gone past the Atlantis talk, though. We should probably circle back.
well, okay, so to circle back to the story of Atlantis, I think that 12,800 years ago, before the Younger Dryas Ice Age period, there may have been at least elements of humanity that were on a higher level. And I'm not talking about like even the high tech that we have now. I mean, it could have just possibly been just like, medieval type people or whatever. Or they may have had a wholly different technology than we have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they could have had something not quite advanced, but like close enough. So maybe they had radio or something.
Yeah, and like I said, anything is possible. But they said, Solon told his grandson Plato about what the Egyptian priest had told him about Atlantis. And there's a lot of different places on our planet that could possibly fit where they say Atlantis was. In the Timaeus and Critias, they said that Atlantis was beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Okay, the Pillars of Hercules is the Strait of Gibraltar, which means if it's beyond the Pillars of Hercules, it's in the Atlantic somewhere. And there's a lot of different places in the Atlantic that it could be. It could be the Azores. It could be closer to Cuba. It could be that spot is not even there anymore.
Oh, I was gonna add that as of this week, or might have been last week, they said something along the lines of it could be around Australia.
That is also possible.
Yeah. I'm not sure how it. I mean, are there many earthquakes near there?
There have been, yes.
Yeah, it says long lost Atlantis landmass where
And now
500,000 people lived discovered after
there is
70,000 years.
Yeah, there is a landmass that we found that has subducted under the waves. That what the what's left of it could be Australia and New Zealand. They're just now discovering that there was more to that landmass that could have subducted in an earthquake 65,000 to 70,000 years ago. Um, Now, as to whether that was Atlantis, who knows?
Yeah.
We don't know how.
We always talk about how the continents would drift apart and all that, but is it possible that a lot of where the ocean is could have been land?
It's definitely possible. Look, anything is possible, like I said before. Hold on, I'm looking for something. Give me a
Yeah.
second.
I mean, why can't Atlantis be on the North or South Pole before it
That's also
became
possible.
icy? Yeah. Well, they talk about was it Antarctica, and how no one has really gone there, and we don't know what's going on there. Like, who's to say that? Maybe that's where they moved Area 51.
It's it's possible.
Yeah.
I we have. I do know we have a presence in uh in Antarctica.
Yeah.
We've had a base down there for God 80 years now.
Yeah. But we
Well,
don't know what
70,
goes on in that base.
60, possibly 60 years now. But we don't know everything that goes on there, and it could be anything, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, they're finding bacteria that's like. I mean, so they're finding viruses and stuff that they probably shouldn't be finding.
yeah, well, we're finding that in Siberia as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things out there that if humans really thought about it would probably frighten the hell out of most of us.
Yeah. Like,
There's
what's
things.
that virus that brings back ants from the dead and stuff like that?
That's not a virus. That is a fungus.
Oh yeah, the fungus. Yeah, and that's what Last of Us was based off of, wasn't it?
Yes, it's called the cordyceps fungus.
Yeah, and now they're recently discovering that it might have transferred to human cell
At one
DNA.
point, yes.
Yeah.
The Last of Us talks about that the possibility of cordyceps being able to control humans really just is a matter of temperature change.
Yeah.
And
And where are we going through now?
with the planet warming up like it's doing, there's a possibility that we may have that cordyceps may evolve.
Yeah.
So CLS says, I still can't believe we haven't conquered the sea, let alone space.
Well, to be fair, I think we're more afraid of the sea than we are of space.
We don't know what's down there, man.
It's so dark, and like when we do go down there, we die.
Yeah, it's pressure. It's definitely a different pressure change. And yes, CLS, there could be other countries that have their own version of Area 51. That's highly possible. In fact, there's many countries that have their own version of Roswell.
Well, exactly. Like, it doesn't always. We always hear about like USA being the top spot for UFO sightings, but that's not true. We always see them in other countries. They
There's
just don't get talked about as much.
There's a thing called, I think it's Rendlesham in Britain. It's the British Roswell.
Well,
They
I
had
know
a
that Nova Scotia has its own little story of a UFO crash. I don't know all the backstory of it, but
Yeah, it's called the Rendlesham Forest Incident. It happened in over 2 days in December of 1980. The events occurred just outside RAF Woodbridge, which was used at the time by United States Air Force. Air Force personnel, including Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Charles Halt, Lieutenant Colonel Charles L. Halt, claimed to see things they described as a UFO. The occurrence is the most famous of UFO events that have happened in the United Kingdom and is amongst the best known, well reported UFO events worldwide. It has been compared to the Roswell UFO incident in the United States and is sometimes called Britain's Roswell. The UK Ministry of Defense has stated that the event posed no threat to national security and therefore it was never investigated as a security matter. Skeptics have explained the sightings as a misinterpretation of a series of nocturnal lights, a fireball, and the Ortfordness Lighthouse and bright stars. Of course, there's always going to be other explanations and skeptics when it comes to I mean, there's probably even going to be skeptics the day that aliens do land on national
Oh
television, step
yeah.
out of the
Well, I
aircraft
mean,
and go, "Hi, we're aliens," you know?
yeah. Well, I mean, we're here now about uh, the conspiracy of Project Bluebeam, and people will think that it's holograms or something. So
Well, America, there were two incidences. One of them is not as well known as the other. That happened in the United States that have led people to believe that the government is involved in the UFO thing. Okay.
yeah.
The first incident, well, the most famous incident is of course Roswell in 1941 or 42. Um, and everybody knows about Roswell. I mean, even people who don't believe in aliens know about Roswell. Okay. And there was a Air Force colonel who, up until the day he died, claimed that he saw things in the desert at Roswell that were unexplainable. Okay. And, I live in Fort Worth, Texas. And just about 5 or 6 minutes north of me is Carswell Air Force Base. And some of the debris, supposedly from the Roswell incident, was brought down to a hangar here at Carswell and stored there. Okay.
Yeah.
And Carswell is a strategic air defense base. It's where we keep a lot of nukes. Um, and that particular Air Force colonel had a press conference out there. Well, at least spoke to the newspapers out there about the Roswell incident when they moved the stuff down. And they moved the stuff down here within a few days of the Roswell incident. It wasn't like years. It was within a few days.
Yeah.
And he always said that the stuff that they found at Roswell was not from Earth. And I'm prone to believe him because he was not known to be a man that lied. Okay, he was not known to be a conspiracy theorist. He wasn't known to be talk about unusual things and all that. But he honestly believed until the day he passed away that those things happened and that what he saw in the desert in Roswell was extraterrestrial.
Well, we also have stories from Bob Lazar and stuff like that. Whether or not
We
you
have
believe him,
we have the stories about Bob Lazar had from Groom Lake, which is
yeah,
the official name of Area 51.
yeah. And then
Um,
last year they had that whole trial, with the aliens. I don't know about the Mexico ones, but they
yeah.
had something else.
Well, there's a guy in our own government right now that is blowing the whistle on the whole alien thing, but nobody wants to believe him.
Yeah. Well, there's
Um,
that, and then the fact that people are like, "Well, I got bills to pay. I don't care about some aliens."
yeah.
So
But
it's
the
like,
other incident that happened in North America, at least in the United States, that a lot of people don't know about, is the Aurora incident down here in Texas.
oh, is that the
Um,
lights?
no, that's Marfa.
Ah,
Um, and that could also possibly be. Hold on, let me bring up the information on the Aurora incident.
because I know that there was a story about a bunch of lights showing up in the
Yeah,
sky.
that's in Marfa, Texas, and that happens. I've actually seen the Marfa lights myself.
Do you
It's
think
an
those
it's an
are
interesting
UFOs
phenomenon.
or no?
I don't think it's UFOs. I think it's something else, but um, it's definitely an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a little information on the Aurora, Texas UFO incident. The Aurora, Texas UFO incident reportedly occurred on April 17th, 1897, when, according to locals, a UFO crashed on a farm near Aurora, Texas. The incident, similar to the Roswell incident 50 years later, is claimed to have resulted in the fatality of the pilot. The pilot was not of this world and was said to be an alien. The pilot was buried in the Aurora Cemetery, and a stone was placed as a marker for the grave, but has since been removed. Now, there is a historical marker just outside the cemetery in Aurora, Texas, that talks about this incident. And there was an article on April 19th in the Dallas Morning News
Huh.
from April 19th of 1897. Um, so On April 19th, 1897, an article in the Dallas Morning News written by S.E. Hayden described the UFO crash. The UFO is said to have destroyed a windmill on the property of Judge J.S. Proctor 2 days earlier around 6 a.m. local Central Time, resulting in the crash. The pilot, who is reported to be not of this world, uh, according to Army Signal Service Officer T.J. Weems from nearby Fort Worth, did not survive the crash and was buried with Christian rites at the nearby Aurora Cemetery. The cemetery contains a Texas Historical Commission marker mentioning the incident. Reportedly, the wreckage from the site was dumped into a nearby well located under the damaged windmill, while some ended up with the alien in the grave. Adding the mystery was the story of Mr. Raleigh Oates, who purchased Judge Proctor's property around 1935. Oates cleaned out the debris from the well in order to use it as a water source, but later developed an extreme severe case of radiation sickness, which he claimed to be a result of the contaminated water from the wreckage dumped into the well. As a result, Oates sealed the well with concrete and placed an outbuilding atop the slab. According to the writing on the slab, this was done in 1945. So basically what had happened was a supposed UFO crashed at 6 something in the morning. It took out a windmill on J.C. Proctor's farm, or J.S. Proctor's farm. And the locals that went to the crash site that saw it basically said that the alien lived maybe 2 or 3 hours. And that they buried him. Him or her, because they weren't sure. And the idea that is coalesced out of this is that the alien that crashed in Aurora, Texas in 1897 was a forward scout for the aliens that crashed at Roswell.
So, almost like to test the grounds of Earth.
Yeah, to test Earth, to see how we are. Now, we have no idea why they crashed, why both ships crashed. We have no idea.
Well, I also heard, is it another story that there was like a firefight between UFOs at one point?
There's 2 stories, actually, historically speaking, that talk about the UFOs fighting in the sky. One of those was at Nuremberg, Germany, back in the 1500s, I believe. There's woodcutting art of that incident. And some of the written accounts of that time talk about this took place over several hours over Nuremberg, Germany, and that it was a spectacular light show. Now, people of the time thought it was angels fighting demons or what have you, but that's pretty much what people at the time probably would have thought. And then there was an incident more recently than that, and by recently I mean almost 100 years ago now, during World War II, off of the coast of Los Angeles. There was reportedly a small battle between U.S. armed forces from the ground, firing on several UFOs in the sky over Los Angeles. Now, whether
then there was another story of an underground firefight near.
Yes.
Was it Nirvana or no?
It might have been Nevada. But yeah, there's several stories, all of them having various dubious, dubious attachments to them. Do I believe that Roswell was a crash? Yes, because too many people with not a lot, with too much to lose, mentioned seeing it. Do I think that the Aurora incident happened? It's likely to have happened. I know that a lot of people in Aurora, Texas still talk about it to this day, well over 100 years later. But I think that I think that what you have to ask yourself is, what do you believe?
Well, there's also a theory that aliens are us from the future.
There's also that idea as well. Um,
That's why we're visiting constantly.
I think that is, like I said before, anything is likely. I'm not
That
sure
or
how
we're
likely
stuck.
that is. But I subscribe to a thing called the dark forest theory when it comes to aliens.
What's that?
The dark forest theory basically says, hold on, let me bring this up so I'm not quoting it wrong.
Because I know there's also the theory that maybe they're just stuck here in our era of time, and that they can't go back to their planet.
Okay, so the dark forest hypothesis is the conjecture that many alien civilizations exist throughout the universe, but that they are both silent and hostile, maintaining their undetectability for fear of being destroyed by other hostile and undetected civilizations. In this framing, it is presumed that any spacefaring civilization would view any other intelligent life as an inevitable threat, and thus destroy any nascent life that makes itself known. As a result, the electromagnetic spectrum would be relatively quiet, without evidence of any intelligent alien life, as in the dark forest filled with armed hunters stalking through the trees like ghosts. Basically, what that says is it's possible that there's many other alien civilizations out there, but that none of us are talking because we're all scared of each other. And with as difficult as hyperspace travel or as faster than light travel would be, I think that's a great possibility.
Do you think that they're terrified of the fact that we're trying to talk to them?
That could be. I mean, like, the only communications that we've supposedly had from space was the WOW signal, which transmitted for a few seconds back in the 70s. And it was a strong signal. Okay? And there's been a couple of others that Arecibo and the Big Ear Telescope have picked up. But what if, because we've never been able to decipher what the WOW signal said to us.
Well,
but
we
what
did
if
send out that disc?
Right. But what if the WOW signal was a warning?
Like, leave us alone type thing.
What if it's hush, they can hear you? If you think about it, humans have been screaming into the void like a bunch of coked out 5-year-olds for about 70 years now. We've been throwing radio signals into space, trying to find somebody that'll pick us up, somebody that'll talk to us. But what if we don't really want them to hear us? Think about it.
Yeah, well, maybe there's a hostile alien out there that other aliens want to avoid.
Well, if you think about it, we have been broad beaming our television, our movies, our radio out into space for about 80 years now. And a lot of our stuff is very, very xenophobic. You know, a lot of our movies, especially when it comes to aliens, is alien invasion movies and us having to fight them. What makes you think that any aliens who pick that up would want to come here? Think about it.
Also, the fact that we're changing to digital now. Do you think they might also be concerned that maybe we go silent after a little bit? They'd be like, what happened?
It's possible. They may think that we're not here anymore. You know, digital changes the game. You know, but I think that we've been monitoring for a certain frequency, and it's the frequency of hydrogen, the hydrogen resonance frequency, because that's pretty much the same for everything out there. It's the frequency of hydrogen in stars. Okay. And good night, CLS. You get some rest, brother. Hope to speak to you more about the weirdness. But we've been tight beaming radio waves at a frequency that everybody should be able to pick up if they pick up on the frequency of hydrogen of stars. Okay. And that being said, maybe they don't recognize that wavelength.
Or maybe they see it, but it's so primitive to them. They're like, and then maybe they'll check on us and then realize we have nukes, and then be concerned.
Hold on. There's another couple of theories I want to bring up. If you give me just a second.
Oh, for sure.
I've just got to find the theories.
Just so everyone knows, you're listening to the CjH Entertainment podcast. We're streaming on Twitch and we're streaming on Twitter. And you might catch the replay on YouTube as well as Spotify and other podcast platforms.
Okay. Another couple of theories I want to talk about. There's a thing called the Great Filter Theory. Okay. The Great Filter Theory is the idea that the development of life from the early stages of abiogenesis to reaching the highest levels of development on the Kardashev scale, that there's a barrier to development that makes detectable extraterrestrial life extremely rare. The Great Filter basically says that we get to a certain point, or civilizations get to a certain point of technology,
and we destroy ourselves.
And we do something stupid. Like, we destroy ourselves with atomic energy, we kill each other in a war, what have you, okay?
Yeah. Who knows, maybe we create a black hole or something.
Yeah. According to the Great Filter hypothesis,
well, that would be the other thing. So anything that's flying around or wherever could be remnants of a planet long gone.
Yeah.
But then the question would be, like, how are they living so long to be,
Well, there's a couple of different ideas of why we haven't heard from the aliens out there. For one, we may be an exceedingly early species when it comes to the galactic timescale. Okay?
Yeah.
We may have evolved way earlier than any other species. And that by the time that any other species does evolve out there, we may be long gone. Okay? There's also the reverse theory that says that we're at the end of the evolution process for races in this galaxy, and that there's several other really ancient dead civilizations out there. That we may one day get out into space and find planets, and all we're going to find is ruins of what could have happened or what could be. That being said, I think I kind of believe in a mixture of theories. I believe in a mixture of the Great Filter and of the rare earth hypothesis, which says this. Even though, even in our own galaxy, there are trillions of planets, that it takes a set series of events that have to happen before those races evolve into a technologically advanced species on the Kardashev scale. Okay?
Almost a canon event, if you will.
Almost canon events. And I think that there may only be 100,000 planets in the trillions that have races on them. And with as vast as even our own galaxy is, which I think at last count we were 100,000 light years across. Okay? From edge to edge. That in the great scheme of things, there may be only 1,000 civilizations in space in our galaxy.
At one time, yeah.
At one time. And that travel would be so exceedingly vast that it's not feasible. We may get out into space and realize that becoming an interstellar species just isn't possible. We may only be able to populate our own solar system.
Yeah. Say we really are alone in this universe at one time.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't know. Maybe there's another species in our own solar system. We're not sure. We've
Well, I
only
mean,
been as far. We've only been as
well,
far as the moon. You know what I'm saying?
they talk about, was it the potential of life on one of the moons of, is it Jupiter or Saturn? One of the ice
It's the
moons.
moon. It's the moon Titan. Um,
Yeah. Well,
well,
there was
there's
that, and
possibility.
then there was another one that's like pure ice.
There's possibility of the moon Titan, and there's also a possibility of the moon Enceladus, which
That might have
is
been it.
what they call an ice shell moon. Okay.
Yeah.
The
It's
moon
like fully an
Enceladus.
ocean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a frozen ball that possibly, because of the tidal forces of Jupiter, has radiation and warmth going on in the depths of the ocean because we have creatures on this planet called extremophiles. They
Yeah.
live in the most extreme of areas on our planet, habitats.
Yeah.
We have deep sea creatures that live near volcanic vents that no life we think should live there, but they do.
Yeah.
And that's a possibility under the ice shell on Enceladus. But it's also a possibility on Titan. Um, and if you think about it this way, maybe there are life forms on Enceladus and on Titan, but they'll only evolve once our star goes to red giant phase.
Yeah.
Because then those moons will be within the habitable zone. You know? But by then, humanity will be long gone. Either we will have left our solar system or we would have been toast.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, the people listening the podcast won't be able to see this image, but everyone on streaming, I'm gonna pull up an image of Pluto. We only recently discovered the actual 4K images of Pluto, and doesn't that look? I know that there's a controversy of whether or not it's a planet, but to me that looks like a planet.
Okay, so what we consider a planet, what we consider giving a planetoid planetary status, is we say it has to be able to clear its own gravity well. Okay,
Yep.
which means that it has to be in control of everything around it. Why they have said that Pluto is not a planet is because Chiron and Pluto basically work as its own planetary system. Okay? Because Chiron, the moon of Pluto, is about half the size of Pluto. So, with our current understanding of how planetary dynamics works, they would not consider Pluto to be a planet because it's tidally locked to Chiron. Okay?
Yeah.
But that understanding could change at some time in the future.
Yeah, it's like we I don't think we landed on Pluto, so who knows that it might have an atmosphere that we don't know about.
It could. We definitely know it's frozen as hell out there.
Oh
It's
yeah, for
cold
sure.
as balls out there because by the time you get out as far as say Saturn, the sun looks like a pinprick on the horizon.
Yeah.
Um,
But
and
like
only
you said
so much
before,
only so much of the
back,
warmth gets out to Pluto.
yeah,
But that
like
being said, we don't understand what kind of life forms could be there. We don't
exactly, it could be
understand, like,
bacteria.
we have things called tardigrades on planet Earth. And we have launched a group of them to the moon. And the last we checked on them, they're alive.
Yeah.
And thriving.
And there's no atmosphere on the moon.
At all.
Well,
Mars.
isn't there like a thin, very extremely thin line of atmosphere?
A little
Not
bit.
enough, yeah.
Not as much as on Mars, and Mars has a very thin atmosphere. So, that being said, we don't know. We've only been to the moon a few times. We've only
That
been
we know of. That we know
we've
of.
only sent probes and shit to Mars, landers and stuff. We don't know. We as a race have not stepped our foot on Mars.
Well,
At least in recent memory.
We've talked about it, but for whatever reason, no one wants to actually go forward with it. But I think that might be the fact that it would be almost like if you go there, you're never coming back. And I
That
don't
is
think
that
anyone
is
actually wants to accept that.
that is true. We may go there and never come back. It is a distinct possibility because, well,
And it
there's.
might be more expensive to actually get the body back than it is,
I mean,
to
if you
go
think
there.
about it, who really wants to have that responsibility?
Yeah.
Like, we may send people out there, and if they don't survive, what are we gonna do? You know?
Yeah. We're just gonna leave them there, or
Yeah. I mean, it's almost a given that the first manned trip to Mars is gonna go badly
oh yeah, for sure. Well, there might be a
because
crash or
there could be a
explosion or
crash, exposure to radiation. We don't know. I mean, we can barely cross the Van Allen belts that surround our own planet.
yeah.
So who's to say that once we get to Mars, it's not going to be the same situation? You know?
Yeah.
I just know that if it becomes possible to go, I may say, damn the consequences and go because
Yeah.
I'm an older man. I'm in my late 40s, early 50s, and I like an adventure.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, they would obviously need someone that's like scientific and like experience in the uh, astronaut field.
well,
But you also would need someone that's willing to like stay there.
yeah, and I'm more than willing. I look. I've always been ready for adventure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've always looked forward to learning new things, and I think that it could be a great adventure.
Hmm.
Now, is that crazy?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Well, you
I,
also gotta think like it would also have to be someone that doesn't have has nothing left to lose. Like their family understands, or maybe they don't have family anymore, and they
yeah.
just want to, spend their last days on Mars.
Well, I mean, if they make it possible for people to go out there and travel there and everything, and it's affordable or whatever, I might take the chance and go. Just because I like new things. I like trying new things. I like trying to figure out what's out there. I've always been way too curious for my own good. uh,
Hmm.
I like the idea of figuring out what's out there in our solar system. I like the idea of taking a chance. And I hope one day that a lot of people get a chance to do it. I hope we build a colony on Mars. I hope that we get Mars figured out enough to make it livable again. It may not
Yeah.
happen in my lifetime, may not happen in my grandchildren's lifetime, may not even happen in my great grandchildren's lifetime. But as long as we don't off ourselves in some stupid war over politics,
Hmm.
maybe we'll make it. Maybe, humanity will get
Maybe
out there.
maybe we'll get that Star Trek dream.
Maybe we'll kick some ass, Who knows? Possibility is endless, you know? And I like to think that maybe we're enterprising enough as a race to possibly figure it the hell out. I don't
Yeah.
know. I do know that we can't keep screwing up this planet.
Yeah. Well, we
You know,
definitely need to focus on this planet.
we're getting to a point where the weather's changing so badly. The climate's changing so badly. Texas is hard to live now during the summer,
Yeah.
and it's just damn, we got to do something. We got to do
It's not
something
like we
to.
have another option
No.
unless we figure out what's going on with Mars. So it's like
Yeah.
we're essentially stuck here.
Humans have always had a spirit of discovery, a spirit of exploration, and I think we should go with that. I think we should follow that exploration. We should follow. Now, saying that doesn't mean that I think that we should be stealing planets from other people, though.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's when it comes to discovery, that's definitely something that happens in the history, like Columbus and such. Like that's human nature, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think that, and this is where I get really skeptical about my own race, but I think that we are going to screw it up before we make it better.
Yeah.
I think that once we get out there, we are going to try to steal things from other civilizations. We've done it to our own race. We've done it to humanity itself. Other members of humanity. We spread and we don't think of the consequences.
Like a virus in a way.
Yeah, it's sad to think about, but it's true. We act like a virus. We act like we're owed something by other places, and we're not. In the greater scheme of things, the universe doesn't give a damn about humanity. You know, and and again, that goes back to being humanocentric. I think that we are almost broken in a lot of ways. The way we think of we own something, or we control, or we're somehow um, entitled to these other places just because we found them. I think that we need to really think more about a symbiosis with the rest of the galaxy instead of we own this now that we're here.
I
You know?
mean, what's the first thing that they did when they went to the moon? They put the American flag in it.
Yeah. And again, that's very humanocentric. That's very us, me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't honestly think that's the way to be. I think that we need to curb what we do more than control. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just don't think that we get it. And that's sad because we should.
Yeah. It is an hour in, so any closing thoughts?
Um, I think that as a race, we need to learn to curb our baser emotions. I think that we need to find a symbiosis with nature, not just on our own planet, but other places. I think this thing of we are the conquerors of all we've seen is not a way we should see extraterrestrial species and stuff out there. And I hope that someday in the future that we'll understand that before we destroy ourselves. And I think that's where I'll leave my thoughts for on it.
Okay. So if anyone wants to know where to find you, where do we find you?
I am uh both of the shows that I'm involved with now are on Sundays. I am usually with Brucifer at Kingdom of Nerds on his Sunday show around 6 o'clock Central Time. I am also on the Tales from the Dark Side show, which is a Star Wars based podcast, over on Renovision on around 9:15 Eastern um, on Sunday nights. And of course, I hope to work with you more in the future on these kind of weird topics. From here on out. Other than that, sometimes you can see me on Perps podcasts. Just kind of chatting movie knowledge and other things of that nature.
Sometimes on the after show.
Sometimes
it's a
on the
little bit
after
more
show.
chaotic, but yeah. But I try to keep it calm and relaxed and chill on the podcast
Definitely.
when I can. Depends on who's on, I guess.
Yep.
But yeah. That's
Definitely.
That's it. As always, we'll see you in the next one. I'll play the outro.